Welcome back to my channel, Made Between the Pages. My name is Taylor, and today we're going to be doing the Get to Know Me in 25 Questions tag. I was tagged to do this by Julian Reeds, so thank you so much for tagging me. I'm excited to do this tag specifically because it's a bit more unique. The questions are more personal, and the goal is to help you guys, the viewers, get to know me a little bit better. The first question here is, what is your channel about? Now, I think it's pretty clear that the main focus is books. Surprise! But I do have some other things that I tend to feature on my channel, and a couple things I want to be able to feature more going forward. The main books that I tend to talk about are adult fantasy or hard-hitting contemporary, as well as some nonfiction thrown in there. But during my vlogs, I do tend to show more about my life in Japan. It's kind of like a Japanese life mixed with reading vlog, and I really enjoy including those aspects of my life here. So I'm toying with the idea of doing Japan-only vlogs without any reading in them, but I'm not sure if I'm actually going to go for that, because so far I do like doing the combo. Another thing I really enjoy talking about on my channel is folklore and mythology. So I have a whole series on my channel where I talk about different folklore stories from Japan, different creatures, mythological creatures, and I love making that series. It brings me so much joy. They take a lot of work, so I don't do them as often as my other content, but when I do make them and put them out, I'm the most proud of those, I think. So those are another part of my channel. And then for the future, I'm thinking of sprinkling in some plant content and some cooking content, because both of those things are big parts of my life, and it'd be fun to include them a little more often. Question number 2 is, how old are you? I am 28 years old. There you go. Number 3, what is your relationship status? I'm married. My husband is on the channel sporadically. Sometimes he's around. I mention him a lot, so that's not a secret on my channel at all. Number 4 is, did you go to college, or what is your occupation? So yes, I went to university. My majors were linguistics and anthropology. So I love, culture, language, how people interact with each other. It's my jam. I eat it up. Then after that, I had a job at a speech therapy office, and I worked there for a while. Then when I came to Japan, I became a teacher, and nowadays I am still a teacher, but I am also like a teacher trainer. So I really enjoy that aspect of my job, communication, talking with people. It's really up my alley. But along with that, my husband and I also own a small restaurant, so that is another thing that I do. And also, I'm working on, hopefully in the future, being able to do some translation. It's really hard to get your foot in the door with that, but I'm working on it, and I'm really excited to get started with that too. Question number 5 is, where are you from and where do you live? So I am from the United States. I'm from the DMV area, or DC, Maryland, Virginia area in the States. That's where I grew up. I've been really lucky to be able to travel over most of my life. But when it comes to where I've lived permanently, there is the DMV where I'm from, and then now I currently live in Fukuoka, Japan. The 6th question gets deep real quick, but it is, what would you tell your 10-year-old self if you could go back? Now for this one, I think I would say there is such a thing as being too loyal. I am an extremely loyal person. Like, once I consider you in my circle, once I consider you someone who has done right by me, I'm going to be determined to do right by you. And I think that I could have learned at a younger age to not take that too far, because that loyalty isn't always reciprocated. And it's not that it necessarily has to be, because not everyone has such a strong feelings in that regard. But it's something that I wish I was more aware of myself when I was younger. There were some friendships that I just should have cut and let go when they weren't doing anything for me anymore, but because of this feeling of loyalty, I kind of pushed through, and that took away some opportunities from me. And I think that, as I got older, I did learn this lesson and through being able to make those choices, am where I am today. But I think I could save younger me a lot of heartache if I could sit down and tell her that you don't need to try to make something work when it's not working, just because you feel obligated to, you know? Number 7, tell us about your family. Well, my American family, my parents, there are 3 of us, just my mother, my father, and I. We do have 2 dogs, but we love to travel together. I have a very, I would say, maybe unique relationship with my parents, where they're like my best friends. I Skype them weekly. We talk about almost everything. Of course, there were times, in high school where I wanted nothing to do with them. There were fights in the past, of course. But where we are now, it's just a beautiful relationship that I have with them, and I really treasure them. So my family is very tight-knit. And then my Japanese family, with my husband and his parents, there are 4 people in his family. He has a younger sister as well. And honestly, when I first met them, I was really afraid they were going to be a traditional Japanese family. Not necessarily that it's a bad thing, but I am a foreigner with tattoos, I wouldn't necessarily be welcome in a household like that. I think it would have been a challenging relationship to have with my in-laws. But as soon as I met them, they were so welcoming, so open, very open-minded, wonderful people. They're foodies, his family, they're foodies, and so we really bond over food. Whether it's homemade, whether it's going out to eat, finding delicious restaurants, like we have a lot of fun together. And I get along with everyone. So truthfully, I really hit the jackpot when it came to my in-laws and my blood family. Although my in-laws don't like pets or animals, so that has me questioning things, because I grew up with pets my whole life, and I'm like, how can you not want a little fluffy, floofy thing with you in your house? How can you not want that, The real questions. I'm asking the real questions. Number 8, what is your favorite holiday? Don't even gotta think about it. Christmas. A lot of this, I think, also comes down to the really lucky, wonderful relationship I have with my family, because Christmas just holds nothing but joy for me when I think about it, when I celebrate it every year. It's just this time in my life where giving and joy are like these palpable warmths in my life, and they come at such a great contrast to the cold, dark weather, that you have. So I just have so many wonderful memories of presents, Christmas trees, stockings, the traditions that my family has that we do every year. They just never fail to bring me joy. So Christmas is without a doubt my favorite. And being able to share my family's culture with my husband's family's culture, and then also them being able to share their New Year's, like Japanese culture, with me, the mixing of those two that's happened has just been even better. So yeah, that is without a doubt my favorite holiday. Number 9 is you have no budget. What is your dream vacation? Now, this is an extremely difficult question for me, almost akin to what's your favorite book, because I love travel. I think I mentioned earlier I've been very lucky to be able to travel for most of my life. And so experiencing foreign cultures and immersing myself in them is something that I just adore doing. So it's really difficult for me to choose what location would be my dream vacation, because I have so many places that I still want to go. But I would definitely be able to say that my favorite style of travel is backpacking. I love staying in like small local places, eating the local food. I love the experience of going somewhere and trying to fumble with gestures to order something, because that's when you find the best things, the most delicious things. Sometimes the worst things, don't get me wrong. There have been mistakes made, and situations that I have barely gotten out of, like being dropped off in an extremely dark neighborhood by a taxi where the location of my Airbnb was incorrect. So it was not where I was dropped off, and the taxi driver just took off, and that was a fun situation to get out of. But those types of stories, those types of adventures are what I really enjoy. So that style travel, pretty much anywhere in the world. I have have done a little bit of backpacking through Europe, but it was very short, for only like a week. So if I had an unlimited budget, I would probably, you know, take a tour through Europe, because Europe is expensive. Like, ain't nobody got money, even backpacking, you know. You can't do it for too long in that country if you don't have income coming in, you know, if it's a vacation type thing. So if I had a free budget, I think I would choose Europe. But I also really, really want to go to India and Southeast Asia. I've gone in a couple parts there, but I haven't done like the whole shebang yet. So I would love to do that too. I love Thai food, so Thailand maybe? Oh, this is so difficult. I'm just gonna say Europe. Backpacking through Europe. That's it. Number 10, name your biggest pet peeves. Now this one is very specific to foreigners living in Japan. So if you're a foreigner who has lived here, you will know this situation. But when you go out to eat, you know, you use chopsticks, right? People don't use forks and knives here. And when you've lived here quite a while, like I have, or even when you're first here, depending on if you've used them before, most people know how to use chopsticks, or they learn how to use them decently well. However, there's this Japanese mindset where they don't think foreigners can use them. Now, the people who make the comments that I'm about to say, I don't know if they believe that there's no chopsticks outside Japan. Like, I'm not really sure where this comes from. But if you go out to eat, without a doubt, someone will point to you and say, "Ah, ohashi jouzu." Ohashi means chopsticks and jouzu means good at. So, wow, you're so good at chopsticks. And it may be, I'm pretty damn sure that it's well-meaning. They mean it as praise, but it just sounds like so infantilizing. Like, oh, look at you go, foreigner. You can use, you know, our utensils. And every time someone says it, I want to be like, yeah, I've lived here for quite some time. Shocking how that works. But I have to pull myself back and I just say, oh, thank you, because I know they don't intend it in that way. But it is such a pet peeve. Let me know in the comments down below if you're a foreigner living in Japan and you've heard this, because I have a feeling it's a very universal experience. Question number 11 is, what book changed your life? For me, this is going to be Harry Potter. I am part of the Harry Potter generation. I grew up with it. I have tattoos of it. It means so much to me. So I know with the discussion with J.K. Rowling, you know, people don't really talk about it so much on their channels anymore, and I don't either, and I respect that. But I will never let the discussion of that take away from what Harry Potter as a story, as a world, has given me throughout my life. Because, you know, I grew up reading these books. Well, actually, my father would read them to me when I was too young to actually read. So every night he would read a chapter or two to me, and it was like our time. And then when I got older, even when I could read by myself, we would read them for the first time together. So we would go get the book at the release, we'd come home, I'd force him to stay awake for an hour or two, and we would read it for the first time together. And this world just became a home for me. And so when something bad would happen, like I had a pet pass away that I grew up with, and it was so painful, and I was like paralyzed, not knowing what I could do with those feelings, and I would automatically go back and read Harry Potter. I would pick my favorite book and I would reread it. So it's just this comfort, and it brought so much love of reading to my life that, you know, it can't be replaced. So when you say a book that changed my life, Harry Potter definitely did. It fostered, I mean, I was reading before it, and of course I've read after, but this world is the one that really fostered the love of reading in me. And it became just such a comfort. So if there's any world that has changed my life very drastically, it would be Harry Potter. Number 12, what simple invention changed the world? Now this is a really interesting question. I'm gonna go with something that's very linguistic in nature and also very connected to books, but that is the written language. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call that simple, but it is one single invention that was developed that really just changed everything. Oral histories and oral language were extremely important, and still are, for passing down stories, but naturally, as stories are passed down by word of mouth, they can change, and you can lose, like, the path it took to get to this new version of the story. But written language allowed those changes to be like put in stone, literally, when we're talking about the first written languages, but it gives you a physical history to look back at. It also allowed different societies to trade with each other, to communicate. It did so much for humankind. So, you know, and it's continued to develop into the hobby that we have today. So while there are a lot of inventions that have changed things, written language, in my opinion, is something that allowed the societies we know today to exist. Number 13, favorite movies or TV shows. So I'm kind of, like, I do enjoy movies and I do enjoy TV shows, but I'm very much a comfort watcher. So I will watch something new, but I like to re-watch things that bring me joy more often than I go in and seek out new things. When it comes to movies, my ultimate comfort movie of all time is Finding Nemo. I love that movie so much. It's just, I can quote the whole thing, I think. If you were to play it, I could quote the whole movie. I have no idea how many times I've seen it, but yeah, it's my ultimate comfort movie. If I just need something in the background, that's what I'll put on. Another movie that I adore is Princess Mononoke, or Mononoke Hime. It's the Ghibli movie. You can see I have my little kodama behind me. This is from Princess Mononoke. I'm a huge fan of nature and hiking, and I've actually been to Yakushima in Japan that movie was based on, the particular moss forest that forest is based on, and it's just as magical as the movie. So I love that movie. I love the discussions of climate change, nature, humans' relationship with nature, our relationship with industry. I just think it's a stunning movie, and it's one of my all-time favorites. The other one that comes to mind as something that I will forever love is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I watched The Two Towers so many times in middle school. Like, I'm almost embarrassed with how often that I would watch that movie. So the trilogy I love to death, but The Two Towers was my favorite when I was younger. But yeah, they're just cinematic masterpieces, truly. If every adaptation could be of that quality, I would love to have adaptations of the stories we love, but unfortunately they usually aren't. So I'm just gonna keep this trilogy as the golden trio that it is, you know, and put that in my favorites. When it comes to TV shows, I am terrible at continuing them. I'll start them, I'll binge watch maybe season 1, and then I'll kind of forget it exists and then binge watch season 2 a couple months later. So I'm really bad at continuing with them. But one of my favorites is Criminal Minds. I love that show. I love serial killer stuff. And the characters in that just have my heart. So I love that show. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I actually recently rewatched that with a friend. They were watching for the first time, and I was on a, I don't know how many times now, but a rewatch. And just, it's so good. So I really enjoy that too. Number 14 is describe yourself in 3 fictional characters. So for this one, I had to give a little bit of thought, but for the first character, I'm gonna go with Shay from Jade City of the Greenbone Saga. When we first meet Shay in this book, she has left her home and her family to strike out in order to prove to herself that she can do that she can make a life on her own. And that is very much me. I've always wanted to leave, you know, the comfort of a home space and go do things out in the world, go do something different of what is expected of me. You know, I was the first student in my entire high school to study abroad because I just kind of went to those in charge and said, hey, I'm going to do this. So we're going to make a study abroad program now, and we're going to make this work because I want to do this. And I've always very much had that drive to do something new like that, and to always have a goal and something I'm working towards. And Shay is very much like that. I just connected to that element of her personality so much, and the emotions that she went through, whether she succeeds or fails. You know, I'm not going to say anything, no spoilers here, but the emotions that she goes through on her journey and figuring out what she actually wants to do, I felt it to my core. So I would say definitely Shay. The next one would be Mizuki Ashiya from Hanazakuri no Kimitachi, or For You in Full Bloom. I used to mention this a lot more on my channel, and I haven't recently, but this is a shoujo manga that I absolutely adore. And its main character, Mizuki, is so incredibly positive. Like, it's really hard to get her down, and she becomes like this positive support for those around her, and that is very much my personality, to the point where, like, my best friend sometimes says, okay, I don't need you to give me a solution to this, I don't need you to be positive about it, I just need you to listen. And so my personality is just very much wanting to fix things or support things or be there for people. And that is very much what this main character is like as well. So I could really connect to her kind of positivity and trying to turn everything into a positive, because that's something that I do as well. The last one is going to be Rock from the Stormlight Archive. Now hear me out. Rock is very much the Rock of Bridge 4. God, I hate myself for saying that, but that is essentially what he is. He makes the stew for Bridge 4 every night. He is kind of the host that brings people together. And I love hosting. I'm the person in my group of friends who always is like, hey, we're free this weekend, why don't you come over? You know, I'll make some cocktails, you can bring some food, we'll have a potluck. I just love having people in a space where I can create, you know, connection and joy. So that's something that really draws me to having a restaurant as well, serving someone good food, providing them with a good experience. I love being able to do that for people. So I feel Rock on that. That is very much what he is in the Bridge 4 dynamic. Number 15, what was your dream job? Now, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a dolphin trainer. I had my heart set on being a dolphin trainer, which is very ironic because now I have a very strong fear of the ocean, and there is no way that I could be doing that. But when I got older, I realized that that's actually a very, very difficult job to get. You have to go through a lot of schooling, and I wasn't dedicated enough to it to do that. And then when I got older, my dream job was to be an interpreter. I would love to be, I mean, if it's talking pipe dream, it would be an interpreter at the UN or something like that. Would be an absolute wonderful job to have. But you know, on a smaller scale, to be an interpreter is something that I could still achieve. So that's still a dream job for me, and I would love to do interpretation rather than translation, just because I love that person-to-person interaction. But yeah, that would be a dream job for me. Number 16, if magic was real, what spell would you work first? I'm gonna go straight up basic here and say elemental magic. I know it's like kind of cheesy, not the strongest, not the most logical, but you know, having grown up with, you know, Avatar and things like that, it just holds this this magic to it, you know? So I would want to be able to control probably Earth as an elemental magic, because it's been a dream of mine since I was a little itty bitty baby, and if I had the chance, I would go for it. Number 17 is share a favorite childhood memory. And for this one, I'm gonna go with, there's this particular like festival that happens in where a lot of my family lives in upstate New York. For this particular festival, my family all gathers together at my grandmother's house. I have a very large family, so we're talking, you know, 30, sometimes 40 people if people bring their friends. There's dogs everywhere, you know, running around, little kids, chaos. But it is wonderful chaos. It is familial chaos. And my memories of going up there and being with my cousins and just having all of my family members together in this one place is just a beautiful memory. And it's something that I was able to experience every year for quite a large chunk of my life. The joy of large family chaotic energy cannot be matched by anything else. And it's something that I really do miss living abroad, because I haven't been able to join them for that gathering, you know, for quite a long time now. So hopefully in the future, I'll be able to jump back in there. Number 18, what is your favorite social media platform and why? Is YouTube a social media platform? I think it is, right? Well, if it is, YouTube, because I feel like YouTube is kind of more long form content. It can be short form, but it allows for discussions and context where I think other formats tend not to. So, you know, I mean, I use social media for all types of things, you know, not just serious conversations, but I do feel like YouTube is a space where conversations can actually happen. Not necessarily all the time. You know, the YouTube comments are horrendous, like they're just cancer sometimes. So I'm not saying that it's all out, but if you watch someone's video full all the way through, typically you can get a better view of what they're trying to say, rather than like on Twitter or something where things can be misconstrued and what is nuance doesn't exist, you know. So I think, you know, when it comes to having discussions, especially about political things or debates, YouTube is something that I really like for that. Number 19 is, if you could spend a day with a book character, who would you pick? And my immediate thought was Gandalf, because I need to hear his stories about where he's been in Middle-earth. I feel like he would drop some wisdom that I could keep with me for the rest of my life in that one day, you know? So I would definitely want to hang out with Gandalf. Gandalf the Grey, probably, not Gandalf the White, because he doesn't have as much humor. Gandalf the Grey would be more fun, I think. Number 20, what's your spirit animal? My instinct for this is to say dog. I've grown up with dogs my whole life. I've talked earlier about being loyal, so, you know, I think a dog just matches my personality pretty well. Number 21 is, what old person thing do you do? I'm gonna say for this one that when I wake up in the morning, I drink green tea every single morning. It's very much like a Japanese bachan thing to do. Most people have coffee, you know, in the morning, but I cannot start my day without my green tea. I need it. My body expects it. It's the form of caffeine that I choose. So every morning I sit down with my little cup of green tea, I drink it, and then I start my day. Number 22 is, do you have a hidden talent? I don't know if this would be considered a talent, but if once I memorize like the lyrics to a song, whether it be on purpose or not on purpose, I will never forget them. Like, I remember lyrics from eons ago. And I don't even remember that I remember them, but then the song plays and I can say it all the way through. So I just have this like photographic memory. That's not the right word because I don't look at the lyrics. So you get what I'm saying. I have a very intense, very good memory for lyrics of songs. Not for names of people, which would honestly be much more helpful, you know, in daily life if I could like remember the name of the person I just met. I'm notoriously horrible at that, but give me song lyrics, I'll remember them until the day I die. 23 is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is a really interesting question at this point in my life. With COVID and a lot of things, the goals that I had kind of got pushed back. But if I'm going with best case scenario, I would see myself set up in the States with a Japanese restaurant, owning a Japanese restaurant with my husband, him being the chef, me being like the manager of it. We would be serving Japanese home-style cooked food, which hasn't really made its way into the States yet, so that would definitely be where I would want to be. We'll see what the actual timeline projection of that is, but yeah, if we could have that business and then be traveling between the two countries to visit our families, that would be living the life. The last question that's actually a question, number 24, is share an item and tell us the significance of it. So I think I'm gonna do an item that's usually in frame for you guys, so you can kind of, you know why it's there. Let's go with these. I'll take off the two small pieces here. But this is sulfur. These are two pieces of sulfur. Now, these we collected, my husband and I went on a trip to Bali, and we actually went from the main island to an island next to it that has an active volcano called Ijen. And this volcano is famous because the fire inside is blue, not red. And it's because of the gases that this volcano produces. It's also a very common place for sulfur mining. So because of the toxic air from the sulfur and the chemicals, we have to wear a gas mask. So essentially we went to this other island just for this specific tour. So we got there at like maybe 10 p.m. and then we had a guide who met us at midnight, and we hiked up the mountain, or up the volcano, and reached the crater at maybe 4 a.m., 4 a.m., went into the crater with gas masks on and got to see this fire. And we picked up some sulfur while we were down there. There are also workers there who are selling like sculptures made of sulfur, so if you want to support the workers, you can get those. But fun fact, sulfur can be an ingredient in bombs. So if you're gonna fly back, be careful the size of the thing you buy. So a lot of these sculptures were too large for us to have been able to take back on the plane because it'll look like you're trying to bring a bomb. So just, you know, tidbit, be careful when you're traveling. But we picked up 2 little tiny pieces to take with us. And then at the top of the mountain, by the time we came back up out of the crater, it was sunrise. So we got to see the sunrise come up over this volcano. Also on the top of this volcano is this bright blue acid lake. It's gorgeous, but like, don't touch it. You'll lose whatever touches it. It'll be burned off very quickly. But to see the sunrise come up, you know, over this, I'll be sure to share pictures. But then after the sunrise, we had to hike back down the mountain, and then our dumbasses were like, oh, it'll be no problem to travel back to the main island the same day. Kids, don't do that to yourself, okay? We were zombies when we made it to the next location. Like, that day was lost because there was nothing to be done. Like, we couldn't function after that without any sleep. So yeah, so that was, it was a very interesting 24 hours. But these 2 things that we snuck back, don't do this at home, kids, okay? But these 2 pieces of sulfur that we snuck back on the plane ride are just memorabilia to remind us of that particular place. We're very nature-minded people, so we like to buy, if we can get trinkets from nature, we will, but we'll buy little trinkets, you know, from wherever we go. So these are also all the things you see behind me. Most of them have like travel stories behind them. But so yeah, that's the story between these yellow rocks of sulfur that you see behind me in every video. Now, number 25 is to tag someone. So first off, if you're watching this video and you want to do this, consider yourself tagged, even if I don't say your name here. I can't possibly say everyone, you know, that I want to hear this from. So consider yourself tagged if you want to be. But I'm going to go ahead and tag Sophia from Fantasy Book Addict, Yasmin from Yasmin Be Reading, Lana from Lore and Lullabies, Tammy from Tammy Tries to Read, and Rachel from Reads with Rachel. That concludes the Get to Know Me Better tag. I know that was a lot longer than I expected, but I just had a lot of fun talking about more personal, you know, things for once. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of any of my answers, if you share some experiences, if you disagree, if you have questions. I'd love to chat with you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell. It really helps me with the algorithm, and I appreciate it. But for now, I'm gonna head out. Johnny!